Well, hi, Oscar.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
That's awesome. I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm just hanging out in the office after work. Yeah, I thought it'd be better to do it here than at home with, roommates and my dog running around and stuff.
Yeah, I know one of your roommates very well.
Yeah.
Um, let's unpack this a little bit of your time at Purdue. So you're a 2019 alum
hmm
in acoustical engineering from the Multidisciplinary Engineering undergrad program. I got the awesome experience to work with you and one of your roommates, Zach, to start the Ides of Engineering podcast.
Yeah.
That really helped celebrate our all of our alumni as we were approaching 50 years of interdisciplinary engineering, which is the legacy program for which acoustical engineering came from, and is by far one of our oldest concentrations in the program. So it's so fun to kind of make that full circle with you and to see you again. And
Yeah.
I know we have a bigger discussion second half of this interview on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're part of that in the acoustical consulting industry. But let's just start with your time at Purdue. How did you end up at Purdue? How did you end up in acoustical engineering? And maybe talk about some of those experiences.
Right. Well, I ended up at Purdue in 2015 is when I started. And both my parents were chemical engineers, and my sister, she graduated from Purdue with a PhD in biomedical engineering. So I kind of went there, and my talents are lend themselves to math and science as well. So I went and joined first year engineering, planning on going into mechanical engineering is what I thought I wanted to do. And around during freshman year, you're deciding what discipline of engineering you're going to go into. And like I said, I was planning on doing mechanical engineering, but I kind of found myself just having a bit of the nerves and kind of low-key mild existential crises that I think kind of characterize a lot of future MDE students educational paths, or during their freshman year they're thinking of doing mechanical engineering or electrical or a different discipline, and they kind of find themselves feeling a bit out of place with that, or a bit insecure with that future, and feeling like there's something different that they feel called to, or that they feel drawn towards. And so I really kind of did a bit of soul searching, especially during my Christmas break of my freshman year. And I really started going back to like my passions of not just what am I good at, and like what are my talents, or what are my skills, but what do I really care about, and what do I love doing. And I kept coming back to music and performing, and the arts, like the fine arts. And I knew that like my talents and my skills and just the things that I enjoy doing, as far as school and what I can imagine myself like working on in the future, were pretty technically based. Of like, I still think like I still very much enjoy doing science and math, and using that logical part of my brain. But I kind of realized I wanted to have a bit more of that musical application in the arts. And so I Googled like recording studio engineer or something like that, or like recording studio design or something like that. And like without even anything to do with Purdue, but one of the first results on the page was Purdue's acoustical engineering page through the MDE program. So I kind of looked through that, and it was very serendipitous and really perfect for what I was looking for. And then and so I found Miss Pekny's email from that, and I shot her an email, and she met with me, and everything just felt like a very perfect fit, which is always kind of how I feel like that's a pretty common characteristic of the MDE students, where like they feel a little lost or like unsure of what they want to do, and then they have that first meeting with Miss Pekny, or with whoever their liaison into MDE is, and they feel shocked that there's a home that feels so particular that feels like so specifically perfect for them.
We hear that so much. And I think, yes, absolutely. And I like to say we just can't take them all. because we really do mentor students one at a time. I mean, we have a small program for a reason, and we literally just can't take them all. We wish we could, because we know we can do some great things with them. But that's why we have so many disciplines at Purdue that are I mean, historically ranked. Everybody finds their fit. So we're lucky when we do find the students who need our program to get them on their pathway to whatever great thing they're going to do. And that includes you as an acoustical consultant. So tell me about, maybe, I guess, before we unpack that, let's talk a little bit more about Purdue. What if there's a student that's watching this right now that wants to know more about what do I do as an acoustical engineer? What were some of your experiences? I know you have a capstone design project that probably would explain the bigger part of what you had to do,
Right.
and how that folds into your current role as a consultant.
Sure. So the cool thing about acoustical engineering is that it feels like a very particular niche of engineering, of having to do with audio and acoustics, but there's a pretty wide, pretty diverse array of jobs and career paths that people can end up taking. A lot of Purdue engineering or acoustical engineering students end up doing underwater acoustics. I know a few of the people from the year above me ended up going into underwater acoustics and moving to Rhode Island and places like that and working on submarine design or doing research. A lot of people end up doing mechanical engineering, kind of noise control, like industrial noise control type of stuff, which is perfect for Purdue because their mechanical engineering has a lot of, especially in their graduate program, there's a lot of research going on in that industry, which ends up being a lot of the classes that you end up taking as an MDE student, ends up being the advanced mechanical engineering acoustics classes, with Professor Bolton and Professor Kai-Ming Lee, and those are always the classes where you really start to learn to really flex your acoustical theory knowledge, where it gets pretty in-depth and technical, and you really start to learn a lot about the theory of the physics behind acoustics. But yeah, so a lot of people get into that type of industrial noise control. A lot of people like to get into sound system design, which is there's already a academic path, I'm pretty sure, already curated for that aspect of going a bit more down the ECE route of things, where you're learning a lot about electronic systems and that more a bit electrical side of potential speaker design or designing speaker array or designing full audio visual systems for spaces. That's a pretty common one. And then a lot of people want to do architectural acoustics, which is where I ended up going into. And that's kind of the world of acoustical consulting, where you work as a consultant on architecture-based projects, helping to mitigate a lot of the sound issues that can go from there, whether it's, room noise of, taming HVAC sound or electrical sound in a room, or if it's isolating spaces from each other, if you have a home theater in your basement and you don't want it to disturb the upstairs and the rest of the house, of keeping that sound from escaping that room. And then also interior sound quality, where, if you have a recording studio or a performing arts theater or, a church or something like that, where you really want it to sound pristine and very musical in the room, tuning the room through acoustical treatment and room shaping so that it's ideal for that. And the latter is more of what my company gets into, as well as sound isolation. We tend to work on both of those combined with each other. And but with it, definitely ours, we have a particular, our niche is the sound quality of a room, of really tuning a space so that it sounds good and musical for the most part. So like I said, that's the cool thing of there are a lot of different paths you can go into it, whether it's designing submarines all the way to designing a concert hall. I was even thinking about, for a while, of I thought about getting a PhD in audiology afterwards, and kind of trying to do research in that area of hearing health, and pairing that with my acoustical engineering background, and going to develop and doing research for hearing aid technology, because that's an area that I think there's a lot of research to be done in there. So that's the cool thing, is you can do a lot of things with it. And the great thing is that the physics of sound transfers between concentrations really, really well, where the physics of acoustics of a speaker making noise actually transfers pretty well into understanding, industrial noise control, and keeping a car volume down from escaping to the rest of the space. And so it's a good place, like especially in the MDE acoustics program, it's a good place to like learn a base knowledge of acoustics and then, you know, expand it in whatever direction you want your career to go in.
I think I know the answer to this, but who was your strongest mentor at Purdue to help you, to help guide you? I'm pretty sure his initials are RT, but I'll let you talk about who mentored you and really led you down the path that you were meant to be.
Right. It's you know, it's a tough question of, you know, I think who you're talking about is Rick Thomas. He was definitely, you know, the most you know, he knew the most about the industry that I wanted to go in and that I was really wanting to you know, get my foot in the door in. And so he's really vital for like the acoustical engineering students who choose to do the sound design through the theater department minor. He'll mentor students, and he, you know, will review your resume and really get it into working shape. And he was definitely, you know, it's funny, like the lessons that he talks about, whether it's, you know, perfecting your resume or how to interview for a job or how to communicate with clients or how to speak the language of somebody who's not in your discipline. I find myself quoting Rick 2 or 3 times a week, you know, where I tell my boss like, oh yeah, my old college mentor used to say that, or even just like when I'm talking with my roommate Zach, who knows Rick, I find myself talking to him. I find myself mentioning Rick all the time with him. But it's a harder question to, you know, answer definitively of who my greatest mentor was, because there were just a lot of them through MDE. And you know, especially I was definitely really thankful for it in the moment. And you know, doing like the podcast and actually having conversations with these mentors and with these people who are helping guide MDE students made me very aware of it. But looking back, that was like easily the most influential and beneficial part of MDE, was having these people that really were invested in our community and wanted to help guide us. Because I could probably, you know, list, you know, like Rick Thomas, and then Professor Davin Huston, and then, you know, Miss Pekny, you, obviously Professor P, it like, there are a lot of guides of like, you know, just like all the MDE professors, but Professor P and Rick Thomas were definitely like the 2 head honchos in that department. Because Professor P, obviously, she's not an acoustical engineer. She's not, you know, a visual design engineer. She doesn't have, like, she doesn't know everything about every single field of MDE, but she's just such a, not like just a wealth of knowledge of the nature of multidisciplinary fields of knowledge, where she doesn't necessarily know like exactly how to help us with a project, but she knows who to put us in contact with, or just how, like, advice on how to change our approach or something like that. And she's just such a willing guide and mentor, which I feel like is almost half the battle with finding good mentors, is somebody who actually cares and actually wants to mentor you, rather than it's somebody who's just filling a box, or, you know, being forced to do something and just trying to get you out of the way. She really cares about, like, you know, what your goals and your dreams are, and if there's something that you're passionate about, she's eager to make it happen in some capacity, which you know, you can't like trade that for anything. That's what you need in a mentor.
Yeah, I'll echo that times 1,000. I mean, even just as her colleague, you know, in the program, I know I can always go to her for good sound advice. I mean, just she has such wisdom in so many different areas and aspects of life that, yeah, I don't know how we could get luckier to have.
Right.
I mean, and for those watching and listening, Professor P is a very affectionate way of describing Dr. Mary Pilotte, who is the director of our undergraduate program for multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary engineering. She also teaches in the program. That she's very much a mentor who will go out of her way to help any student who comes to her. Now they have to do the work, just like you probably learned. I mean, with working with, you know, Miss Pekny and Professor P, they expect students to do the work. And so, and Rick Thomas, I remember when I talked to him and interviewed him for a colloquium we were getting ready for, I asked him about how he mentors. And and I know what it was. The person that I was getting ready to go interview in Chicago, because he has a consulting firm and he's hired more and more Purdue grads out of our acoustical engineering program. And I wanted to know why. Like, why is he now all of a sudden calling Purdue every time, and calling Rick specifically, saying, hey, who you got going through the, who's rising up to getting ready to graduate? I need another one. And Rick said, oh, they have to earn that. I don't do it for them. He said, and the best part is, and you alluded to this, the start of a resume to the end of the resume, and how much growth has happened in that time. And he said that the students earn it. When I pass along those names, it's the ones that earned it. And but he said, man, what satisfaction to see, and to help to see that light bulb come on for those seniors who get to see where they started and where and how they're finishing at Purdue to really set themselves up for a very successful career. But back to the consultant out of Chicago, when I did go and interview him and ask him, he said, well, before I needed an electrical engineer, I needed a materials engineer, I needed a mechanical engineer. I mean, we just started listening. And he said, when I realized what Purdue was doing in the acoustical engineering concentration, he said, well, first of all, they can come in and do the job on time and on budget, and have the knowledge, but also have the knowledge to work with all those disciplined engineers as far as in their specific fields. And so he prefers now to work with acoustical engineers, as many as he can, right? I mean, when he has a position to fill, he looks for those first, because you all are so diverse, and being able to work with so many different types of engineers, but also at your own right for the things that Purdue has taught you. So I love that you quote Rick. That's great.
Yeah.
I just, we are so lucky. We just can't be any luckier.
Yeah, and Rick's the type of mentor that he's the type of mentor you need, not necessarily. He kind of embodies like the idea of like telling you exactly what you need to hear, whether you want it or not. It's because he really preps you for the grind of trying to get a job as somebody with an audio focused career, of that it's difficult, it's incredibly competitive, and he really pushes you to make that resume better, and to sharpen your interview skills, and to to research your jobs at your industry, so that you're really finding a job that not only that you want, but that you're well suited to get, because it's a pretty wide field, and it's hard to find the job that's going to be a best fit for you. And it's the proof is in the pudding of the students he mentors find jobs that they like, and that where they're very well, like highly valued. And it's I imagine that would be an incredibly gratifying thing for him. And
I like to call him the mirror. He's the mirror that every student needs to see to really know the truth and hear the truth and be prepped for what they're about to face. I mean, I like those kind of mentors myself, and Professor P is one of them. To me, is the mirror. If I get myself way over my head on something, she's not afraid to tell me. It's good. It's good to be back down to earth and to realize, I needed to hear that.
Right. But then you still develop that close, almost like friendship like relationship with him and with Professor P and all your mentors, essentially, where like at the end of the year Rick hosts like a cookout at his house for all his students, especially like, and the ones who are graduating, where like he honors them, and we all watch like some special sound design movie like on his surround system. So you get that tough love, but there's also just friendship and good relationships underneath it all.
That's so much fun. That's so much fun to take with you. That'll be a piece of you for forever. Right. I love it.
Yeah. And it's so cool to be. So it's just so cool for like people like Rick and Professor P, who their passion is helping other people pursue their passion. Because passion really is like one of those defining MDE qualities, and it's amazing that's just amazing that their passion is helping us achieve our dreams, and that's just such a special type of person.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it kind of made me think about how she introduced the purple squirrel. And I know a lot of our people out there that are watching our conversations and Go purple squirrels and purple squirrel power. You came in about that time. I think it really started to, everybody kind of started to own it as far
Yeah.
as the community. So that's a discussion for another time. But, you know, again, if you guys that are listening want to know what a purple squirrel is, look it up, because it easily defines a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary engineering alum and student. So Oscar, I'm gonna redirect us to talk about a discussion that we had on LinkedIn. I've noticed in the last, I don't know, couple semesters that we've had more women in engineering and in multidisciplinary engineering pursuing acoustical engineering. And I was curious your take on that, especially when we just had a recent post from your consulting firm mentoring an intern, Lizzie. And I'll make sure to link that in the description below in this email of the work that she did with you. And you had an interesting reply on that one about what you're seeing and the work that you're doing, that you're a part of. So can you talk about that a little bit for us?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, you know, that's been a trend that I've noticed, of just the rising presence of women in acoustical engineering. At least at Purdue, I was noticing it, you know, from as early as like my junior year, you know, where it just felt like there were more and more, like we were just having more women trying to enrolling in the program. And then as, you know, I was president of the Acoustical Society on campus. And so there were a lot of, we worked really hard to engage freshmen a lot, rather than just the people that were involved in our major, so that we could get a bit of more of a diversity of, you know, so that it wasn't just acoustical engineering students necessarily, but it was also just anybody interested in the field of audio and acoustics. And, you know, I also kind of had the selfish intent of recruiting freshmen and then getting them to go to MDE as well. But it was done with the intent of, you know, making it just a more educationally diverse situation. And we found that there were, you know, I don't know if it was just luck of the draw or what was going on, but we found that there were just a lot of women that were interested in the field, and that were really strong, you know, just passionate students. Of one was doing, you know, she had like a lot of audio experience in high school already, and so she was already, you know, well down the path of getting involved with acoustics and acoustical engineering. And just a lot of people that were passionate about it. And it was always, you know, we were pretty busy with like when in my time of the ASA, where we had like a lot of different projects going on. But it was always something that I wanted to do, was to partner with women in engineering, the Women in Engineering chapter at Purdue, and do something related with do some kind of collaboration with them, whether it was like, you know, a recruiting event or some kind of lecture, you know, like lecture or seminar night or something like that. It was always something that we talked about doing and wanted to do, but like we just, you know, there's only so much time in a year, and we weren't able to get to it. But yeah, so that was always something that I was, you know, seeing, and, you know, the growth that I was seeing in the industry even as a student. And, you know, it kind of changes a bit when you graduate, because, you know, right now the MD or the acoustical engineer or the acoustical consulting industry is an older industry right now, where but there's like a influx of new graduates right now, of young professionals in it, but by and large, you know, it's a lot of you know, older it's like it's an older industry. And so, you know, it's a lot of men and not a ton of women, but you know, we're seeing more and more of a presence of it. And I believe that the president of INS, I might need to double check that, but I believe one of the candidates, at least for the president of INS, the Institute of Noise Control Engineers, is a woman this year, and I think she would be the first female president of INS, and that would be awesome, you know. And you've kind of seen in the industry by and large this year, there's been a lot more of a push for, you know, addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you know, especially with just, you know, the you know, just the nation situation throughout the summer this year. It seemed like a lot of professional organizations have been pushing to really make sure that they're doing their part to you know, to make their industry more of a diverse and safe place. And so there have been a lot of, you know, committees formed, or, you know, statements put out by these national organizations of, you know, trying to foster an inclusive environment. And that was really awesome to see. And so The main organization that I'm a part of, it's called the National Council of Acoustical Consultants, or NCAC for a shorter name. They formed a DEI committee towards the end of last year. I think sometime in October, September was when it started. And I was really excited about that, and I was eager to hop on it. And it's a really cool, different, you think of like changing, laws or changing legislature, but then, I just found myself thinking a lot of like, what's my role to play in this? If, my job is to make rooms sound better, what's my job in terms of, in terms of diversity, inclusion, and making sure that, people are getting their fair share at the pot. And so it's really cool to approach it in that way of, we're obviously not changing any laws. We're not making anything, changing the country or whatever, the way the country functions, but we're just trying to make sure that our industry is, healthy and indicative of the communities that we serve. And so we've had several meetings where we're discussing, what actions need to be done. And, we've recently, reviewed our canon of ethics and updated it to, better reflect of, we don't discriminate based on, race, sexual orientation, identity, gender, things like that. And it's really awesome. There are a few women on the committee, and they're both just incredibly passionate about acoustics, and about acoustics in their field, but they're also passionate of they know what it was like to feel like they were the only women in the room in most of their college classes and a lot of the meetings that they're leading and things like that. And it's really awesome to see them, excited about, leading the way and helping make it more possible for other women to join the industry, and where it just doesn't make any sense for it to be, only men. It just doesn't, it just doesn't, it's one of those things that it doesn't make any sense, and there's a reason, and we should change it because, we'll all be better that way. But,
yeah. I love that you, first of all, had started this journey while you were at Purdue and at least talking about it, right? The action items that, of talking to the women in engineering groups as far as the sessions that they have. And hopefully that'll happen. Hopefully, somebody will make that happen soon. But you just give such hope to knowing that there are industries out there that are really looking at DEI and how, just like you said, what can I do about it? What's my role? I know I can't change laws. I know there's things that I can do to persuade, but what can I do? And
right.
What do you guys have timelines, action items? What's some good advice for others when they hear about this and think, oh, I wonder what I could do in whether it's my industry or my company or my school or my program? What's a starting point? What's your advice on a starting point and some immediate action items?
Right. As far as, it's tough to say I'm by no means a social justice expert or, a sociologist or anything like that. But, and, for one of the challenges that our committee is facing is that it's something like 40% of the companies that are in NCAC are 5 people or less, or 5 people or smaller in their company. And so, a lot of the action items that you see from like larger organizations, like, the Architectural Institute of Architects or the American Institute of Architects or just larger institutions where their companies tend to be larger, it's, their action items of, have a project led by like a minority person or by a woman, or, have a committee of addressing, workplace disputes or, formalizing that way of, addressing some of those situations that might occur in an office situation. But then ours is a bit more of a unique challenge where, my company is just me and the owner, where it's like, what does formalizing a dispute look like that, where it's just the two of us talking and, figuring something out. And so it's kind of been a lot of, we ask ourselves we obviously have a role to play in this since we want to make our community better and our community, our industry can be better, but, we're not comprised of a lot of big groups of big companies with lots of people in it, where there's like almost like its own society within that company. And so what we're trying to guide it to is see how our small companies can interact with the public, whether it's, you know, providing pro bono services for, maybe like some at-risk population, or us reaching out to a university, to a women in engineering program at Purdue or something, and saying, there's a growing presence of women in acoustics. We would love to, have a conversation with you guys, or have a lecture seminar where we explain, what goes into our industry and things like that. And so, and it's really like, that's just our industry's unique situation, where each industry and each type of each career path is going to have its own set of challenges as far as making its space a more inclusive and welcoming environment. And so I'd encourage people to think of the nature of their industry and where they think their industry could be failing, and the unique ways that it could be better, because the nature of the action items for an acoustical consulting firm is going to be much different than a software firm like Microsoft or Google or something like that, or a corporation. Just by its nature, it's going to be different. We don't tend to be in charge of a lot of projects where we're bringing in subcontractors and different consulting firms and different consultants. We're usually one of the consultants brought in, and we're just playing our role. And so it's what is our role in making that environment better and more inclusive. It's tough to say for each, for every single profession, but it kind of takes that self-evaluation of what is our situation and what are the problems, and how do we move forward.
Breaking barriers, it sounds like it's possible because of people like you and the associations that you work with to form these committees and actually have some action items. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's quite another to act on it. And it's just, I really wanted to have this conversation with you because I think it'll provide some hope for others, and it'll inspire others to know that, I know personally Teresa Walker has a role in what she's doing in communications, and everyone has a role in some way. And it's such an important conversation to have and keep having and doing. It's not just having the conversation, but doing something about it. And
when we talked about action items, and I think an important one is, like I said at the beginning, I'm not a social justice expert. I'm not a sociologist. I can read a ton of articles and do my own personal research, but at the end of the day, that's just not my area of knowledge, and that's not what I'm a professional in. And so I think that's one of the key things that people need to do is consult those social justice experts, and the people that know that their job is to create a healthy workplace environment and a welcoming workplace environment, because those are the people that we should be listening to. And I think bringing somebody else in to independently maybe assess your company, or just give you pointers and things, I think that works a lot better than just looking at yourself and saying, I think I'm doing a pretty good job, I think we're probably fine, because it's hard to see problems that are within ourselves. And so we kind of need those external eyes and that expertise on the side a lot. And yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that you can have the best of intentions, but at the end of the day, if you're not an expert in a field, you need to communicate with those experts.
Excellent. I just couldn't agree more. And ironically, our head, who is a social justice expert, she actually hired a couple of external experts to do a few workshops with us, and I know I can't wait for more, because I learned a lot in those first couple workshops that we had together. There's a lot more to learn, a lot more to discuss, and I know I'm personally looking forward to that. But you're right, it's taking somebody outside who knows how to listen, how to assess, and how to help you with those action items. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Right.
Well, you'll have to keep me posted on how you guys are doing, and if there's something that we can do within our own program to have you guys talk. Like I said, it really caught my attention, and I think it probably started with Ellie Wing winning her award and the research that she did, and then it just kind of snowballed from there when I kept seeing these names. I'm like, oh my gosh, that seems like a lot of women pursuing acoustical engineering all of a sudden. I don't know what it was, but it really caught my attention. And so I'm glad I brought it up, because I wouldn't have known about your participation in what you're doing with your societies, and definitely having these discussions on DEI. So I love knowing that, and
Yeah.
I hope that you stay in touch and keep us posted on how things are going.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess just to give Ellie another more of just to reiterate your shout out to Ellie. Ellie Wing is one of the most capable people I've ever met in my life. I couldn't think, like, when I saw that she had won that award from the Institute of Noise Control Engineers, there was nobody that could have deserved that more in my mind. It's amazing. I'm sure she's an incredible role model to not just the women in acoustical engineering, but to everybody in acoustical engineering at Purdue. She's about as model of a student and as an acoustical engineer that I can think of.
I I was blown away when I talked to her. I had no idea what we had in our program, and I really wish I would have met her earlier, because I met her, during the pandemic, and so
Right.
there was very little time to get to spend, with her. And when I went to campus to help film, the interviews, and to show the clapping circle that for the reason why she won the medal. Um, oh, I yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, she's gonna do great things.
And that's the cool
She's a
thing of of MD in general. Obviously Ellie is fantastic and uniquely amazing, but MD just fosters that leadership within itself of, like, we have these mentors, and we have, like, Professor P and Rick and Miss Pekny and Rich Dionne, all these people that mentor our students that are professors and doctors. But then the students are also just mentoring themselves, where they feel invested enough in the community where they want to play leadership roles, where they're helping the younger students. And it just creates this self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever, where the students are helping build up the students, and it just keeps on leveling up like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so I think Ellie's dream, and what she told us in her interview, was that she wants Purdue to be known for acoustical engineering, and she really
Amen.
wants more. I know. I'm like, okay, we're gonna shoot for the moon, and it's not unheard of. We are gonna try. We'll do everything we can. So what's next for you? What's just kind of wrapping up here? Are you do you have room for growth where you're at? Are you gonna stay? Or what's your big dream?
I think I'm about done growing. No, I'm joking. I think this is it for me. I think I peaked pretty early. No, like I said, our company right now is just me and my boss Gavin, and we're looking to hire somebody else, and we have some interns every summer. But I'm just looking to keep this company growing, and to really work on my own development as a designer and as an acoustical engineer, where acoustical consulting is this really beautiful blend of engineering skills and technical skills, but then there's also so many different factors to balance, of, like, aesthetics and visual arts and visual design. And I'm just looking to continue to up my game in that. And it's been, the pandemic has been a surprise blessing, where we've obviously, not that it's like a good thing just in general. I would not wish for another pandemic, and I'm not glad that it's happening. But we've just been very busy with recording studio projects, where we've just found an uptick in recording studio projects. And like I said, when I joined acoustical engineering, my dream was to be a recording studio designer. And so we've been really busy, and I've been developing that skill a lot more this year. And I just really want to continue to grow that, and just be the best designer I can. And it's and doing it in the way that's healthy, and while being a good person, because the acoustic, I love the acoustics industry but a lot, but there are certainly issues, like some issues of there's a lot of pride in the industry at times, and there's you just find battling egos and conflicting, you know, things like that. And I really look forward to doing it as a high quality job as I can, while still, you know, just being a good person and helping out where I can.
And I'm sure you are, and I'm sure you will continue to be. And I think helping build each other up, it is such an important, and it's an important time, especially right now, to build each other up instead of worrying about pride and tearing each other down, to help the other one up. So please tell your roommate Zach I said hello.
I will.
And we will have to do a reunion Ides with Alex eventually. And I would love that, for the four of us to get together and do an update on the both of you. And but yeah, please stay in touch. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And I just can't wait to share it, and hope that others, I know it will inspire others. And I know Professor P will be very glad to hear your voice, and I'll make sure that Rick gets a link to it as well. He'll be very proud to know you quote him. He'll probably be asking which quotes now, so he can make a poster or something.
Nice.